The amount of technology that is really invading the cryptocurrency space is continuing to explode. We're seeing all sorts of things around wallets. We've had, of course, on the show, people going into the Lightning Network and how to implement micropayments. I mean, the amount of innovation is really mind-boggling. We're going to dive into that today with a very unique company. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. Today joining me is Erik Voorhees. He is the CEO and founder of a company called ShapeShift. And when you look at this company for the first time, it's very innovative. It's different in what, if you're new to crypto, this may be a little bit complex for you, but stick around, don't get lost. This is going to be one of those things that's a great education topic that will help you understand how to move crypto from one value to another, and we're going to dive into it. So Erik, hey, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, let's go into ShapeShift. Kind of give us your elevator pitch when you try to explain to people the average early adopter versus the people who are just now getting into crypto, because you seem to be a product that's a little bit more for the mature, crypto player. But how do you explain it to someone who maybe doesn't know that much about it?
Yeah, well, so ShapeShift started as a very simple tool to convert one digital asset into another back in 2014. So if you had Bitcoin and you wanted Litecoin, for example, you send in Bitcoin, we would receive it, and we would send you out the Litecoin on the other side. And that was sort of the form that we were in for several years. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've kind of upgraded into a much more holistic crypto experience. So now you can use ShapeShift as your entire wallet and portfolio management. You can still trade between different digital assets, but it's a lot more than that. The fundamental feature that ShapeShift offers is that we are non-custodial, and this means that we're not holding any customer funds.
Right.
So this stands in contrast to a company like Coinbase, where they are holding your Bitcoin, they are holding your Ethereum. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but if you're you don't actually have control over your crypto, and you being in control of your crypto is kind of the entire point. So ShapeShift makes it easy to maintain full control over your digital assets and to use them safely.
And I think a lot of people maybe don't really understand that whole idea of care, custody, and control of your crypto. When you look at, in typical Coinbase has done, listen, I use it. We use all of the different platforms just to really understand it for our audience. But when you look at Coinbase, I mean, they've just made it so simple. It's kind of like a Robinhood. It's really an easy and elegant product. But you are right. It's one of those things. Once you get into crypto deep enough and really understand what this means to your portfolio and also the future, the opportunity to use maybe a ShapeShift really starts to get very intriguing. Talk to me about the kinds of, have you guys dealt with any kind of partnerships with cold wallets and different kinds of wallet products that are out there to help your users kind of move to that next level?
Yeah, so I assume you mean like hardware wallets.
Yes.
So hardware wallets are little USB devices that hold the private keys that are controlling your digital assets. And they're a great way to use this stuff safely with relative ease. And so yeah, the ShapeShift platform has integrated 3 different hardware wallets, Trezor, Ledger, and KeepKey. KeepKey is one actually that we own ourselves. That's part of ShapeShift, but we support all 3 of those hardware wallets. So you use our shapeshift.com interface, and you have the hardware device plugged into your computer over USB.
Right.
And it's a really easy, convenient way to use crypto where the assets are never touching an internet connected device. And that's really a key security feature of those hardware wallets.
I used the Trezor wallet and I found it to be very, very interesting. So you launched your own hardware wallet, as you just mentioned?
We acquired KeepKey back in 2017. So
okay.
Yeah, Trezor and Ledger are larger. Far more of those devices are out in the wild. KeepKey is a smaller user base, but we acquired that company, and that's sort of the native hardware wallet supported on our platform. But Ledger and Trezor can also work.
So explain to us when you look at the ability of let's go through a scenario here for a second. Let's go with someone who is a Coinbase user. They want to graduate themselves up to the next level of really controlling their cryptocurrency. They want to move it from Coinbase to ShapeShift. What's the process? Kind of talk to me a little bit about the technology and what are the things they're going to need to do to get that done.
Yeah. So if someone, let's say someone has, 1 Bitcoin in their Coinbase account that they bought a few years ago, and now it's worth a lot. Coinbase is a great service, but you are trusting Coinbase, and you're trusting them in a number of ways. You're trusting that they don't get hacked. You're trusting that they don't have some kind of insider that interferes with the wallets. And you're trusting that some government agency somewhere doesn't send them a letter saying, freeze this account, right? Or for whatever reason, governments want to spy on people. They do that kind of thing a lot. If you have your Bitcoin at Coinbase, you aren't actually in control of that Bitcoin, and that's really key. You still have the price exposure, but you don't have the control. And if you understand cryptocurrency, the entire point is that an individual has control over their assets now. But that attribute only exists if you are controlling your own keys. So if you want to graduate, you could go to shapeshift.com. You can create an account with nothing more than an email and password. And once you do that, you will have a wallet, and you can get a deposit address. That's just a normal Bitcoin address, the long string of characters. You would go then to your Coinbase account, you would do a withdrawal, and you would input your Bitcoin address from your ShapeShift wallet into Coinbase, click withdraw, and so long as Coinbase approves you, the Bitcoin will be withdrawn from Coinbase and will go to your own keys held with ShapeShift. So that part's all very easy. There's nothing difficult about that. The only thing that someone needs to realize that when they're using ShapeShift, they are the only ones that control their keys. We do not have backups of your keys. We do not hold those funds. So you need to be responsible for backing up your keys, and you do that with what's called a seed phrase, which is 12 words that you just write down on paper and store in a safe or bury it in your yard or whatever you want to do with it. As long as you have those 12 seed words, you can't lose the funds, but that's an important step.
No, I think, well, and I think the key there, when you look at where this technology is going, we're going to see more and more people really start to understand the freedom that, cryptocurrency can really provide, especially when, and I think this is going to be the scenario when you look at someone like Robinhood, who really had some trouble, and I anticipate they're going to see some trouble coming up soon with Doge, in the scenario of what's happening on Saturday night. And those influxes on the systems start to kind of create a little bit of doubt. There are doubts in different ways, because that's more of a traffic scenario rather than more so a control and custody situation. So I think as people get more exposure to that, I think people are going to starting to really think about how they are storing their crypto and doing it in a much more secure way than what's been used in the past. Right now, it's the masses coming in, a lot of money moving in, whether it's you're going into Coinbase. We've had Voyager on the show here, going into someone like that, BlockFi, all the different variations that have different unique benefits, because there are some obviously trusted benefits there for paid interest and earned interest, those kind of things for sure. When you look at kind of the aspect of where the variations of cryptocurrencies that have hit the market. Obviously, the number of projects now, I would probably say, and maybe there's 100 coins now that have real validity in the market space. How are you guys able to handle the masses when maybe I want to bring in Pirate Chain, or I want to bring in, VeChain, or I want to bring in some Cardano or Solana? What are the potential opportunities there if I wanted to move that into a ShapeShift account?
Yeah, good question. So we certainly don't support every asset out there. There's a very long tail, and most digital assets, I would say, are pretty worthless /silly/scams. So you have to be
Yeah.
very careful. But even though most of them are somewhat worthless, that still leaves dozens, arguably hundreds, that are
Yeah.
legitimate.
For
And
sure.
so it's always a struggle for us to figure out, where to put our efforts into, which assets do we support. Some assets will be popular for a little while and then kind of fade off. Others have a lot of staying power. Something like Dogecoin, as silly as it is one of the longest lasting cryptocurrencies at this point. And um, so, no one can really predict what people will care about in the future. We try to add coins that we see as popular, not clearly, a scam or anything like that, but assets that people have a legitimate interest in. We try to get around to adding those to ShapeShift. So currently there are a few thousand assets supported on ShapeShift. Most of those are ERC20 assets, which is just the token standard which exists on Ethereum. But we support most of the major chains as well.
Yeah, very cool. So, okay, let's talk about the differences here between quick and precise deposits, because I was a little confused on that when I first looked at your platform. Explain how that works and what are the differences?
Yeah, actually, that's not really relevant anymore.
Oh, okay.
So back in our prior model, when someone would send an asset to us and we'd send something back, there were basically two ways to do that. One was a quick order where someone would just send it in, and whatever the current best price we could get them, we'd send it back to them. The other was a precise order in which they wanted to receive a specific amount out. So maybe you want to receive like 100 Litecoins exactly, or maybe you're paying for some bill that requires, like 0.126 Bitcoin exactly. The precise order was used for that. Today, we have simply integrated the leading decentralized exchange protocols, and all of the trades are essentially a quick type. They're just done at current market price. You click trade, you click the amount you want to send in, and the order is executed at the best price at that moment. So it's a little simpler than it used to be.
Nice. Okay, so those are some of the key benefits with it in terms of security. Do you see this as becoming kind of a de facto potential solution for the industry? Where do you see the growth for ShapeShift in the future?
Yeah, our big transformation over the last year has been to acknowledge that decentralized protocols are not just popular, but are absolutely going to dominate the industry.
Right.
So we've decided to simply integrate those decentralized protocols into one open crypto platform. So people don't have to know about 15 different services out there. They can just use one interface and interact with the best of those protocols through one place. So a lot of the growth of ShapeShift will come from the protocols that we integrate into our platform. And those will all, without exception, be decentralized protocols.
Interesting. I like that, especially when you look at and to your point, the DeFi side of it is going to be absolutely, I think, just ablaze. When you look at some of the other applications around where maybe Ethereum is going, and obviously their new project going to ETH2, where do you see some of the projects kind of breaking out? In other words, do you see certain protocols or certain applications within crypto that you yourself and ShapeShift are really watching closely, thinking this could be a very interesting one that we need to keep a real close understanding on what's happening there?
Yeah, the best recent example of that is a project called Thorchain, which is a silly name, but a very serious and amazing project. Thorchain is essentially a decentralized exchange that allows people to trade across chains. So this has never really been done before. And there are decentralized exchanges that have existed for years. They tend to exist on single chains. So they'll exist in Ethereum, and they let you trade Ethereum ERC20 tokens in a decentralized manner. Or they exist on the Binance Smart Chain or on the Solana chain, and they only allow you to trade coins or tokens of that chain. None of them have allowed you to actually trade like a native real Bitcoin for a native real Ethereum across chains without any intermediary. That has been a groundbreaking development that Thorchain figured out how to do So we had been integrating Thorchain over the last several months, and they launched and we launched on the same day about 3 weeks ago. So that project is still new and getting going, and the liquidity pools are filling up. But I think that's going to be one of the most transformative projects in the whole ecosystem.
Wow. Okay, there you heard it, Thorchain. Let's talk about Fox tokens. How can they be used to utilize your free to no commission platform?
Yeah, so all trades that are done through ShapeShift today, because they go over these decentralized protocols, we do not add any fee to. So you don't get any worse price doing a trade through ShapeShift as if you went natively to that protocol itself. Okay. The Fox token, however, we will pay you Fox tokens if you trade through us. So ultimately, you get a much better deal if you're trading through ShapeShift, because not only do you get the same rate on the base trade you were doing, you also get X number of Fox tokens based on the volume that you're doing through ShapeShift. Right. Fox tokens will have a number of interesting uses in the future that we haven't made public yet. But today, and you guys are actually the first ones to hear about this, you can cover part of your gas fees with the Fox tokens that you have. So basically, gas fees are essentially the transaction fees in Ethereum, the mining fees. Yep. And they've gotten pretty burdensome. The usage of Ethereum has skyrocketed. The fees people have to pay to get into the next Ethereum block similarly skyrocketed. Often people are paying, $20, $30, $50 to do a trade through a decentralized exchange, regardless of the amount being traded, because that's just what the cost of the gas is to execute those contracts. ShapeShift will now reimburse you based on how much Fox tokens you have with more Fox tokens. So if you have a bunch of Fox tokens right now and you do a trade that costs $20 in gas fees, depending on how much tokens you have, we may compensate you up to $20 of additional tokens for that. So it can pay part or even all of your gas costs for executing those trades through ShapeShift. So not only are you getting Fox tokens for the trade based on the volume, you're getting Fox tokens which compensate you for the gas that you would have been spending anyway. So that
Very
is
interesting.
that went live yesterday. I don't even think we've publicly announced it yet. So you guys are hearing that first.
I love it. Okay, how do you pull that off? I mean, because that seems like that would be a no-brainer for somebody that's looking at going after Ethereum and that protocol. How would you make any money on this?
We're not trying to make money on trading. We see that as a commoditized service.
What's the business model?
So the business model long-term is that we see that these assets get pooled in these self-custody wallets, right? So billions and billions of dollars are collecting in the self-custody wallets that are connecting to ShapeShift. Right. A lot of those assets can earn yield, either by providing those assets into liquidity pools, or lending those assets, or staking those assets. Those are kind of the three main ways of earning yield today.
Okay, yeah.
So ShapeShift doesn't today, but will in the future, allow people to earn yield on those assets, and ShapeShift will simply take a cut of that yield. So it's a fairly simple model, but what we are not doing is taking any commission on the trading of assets themselves.
Right. So this is I see the model now. You go freemium for a while. You get adoption to a certain critical mass. You roll that in, and definitely now you've got a service that can be utilized for those company or those people, those holders that really need to be able to utilize those assets and make them go to work. I'm kind of curious though, as you get into the development of that service where you can put those stored assets to work. Is this going to be a scenario where the stored assets would be kind of like, think of it as a vault? If you were sitting on gold, your gold is over here in a vault. It never really leaves the vault, but the valuation of that gold is there. And because of your relationship through you guys, you become somewhat of the intermediary for me investing or pulling investment on that gold, whether it's, loaning it out, whether it's, creating other types of investment classes for someone that's maybe looking to go in that direction. Is that how it would work?
Close, except that we're not the intermediary. So you're using So we're
Who
just
would
connecting
handle
you with
the?
these decentralized protocols.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
let's take lending for example. So right now, if
Yeah.
someone has some Bitcoin, they can earn interest on that Bitcoin by depositing it at an intermediary like BlockFi. Right
Right.
now, BlockFi is a central custodian. They are actually
Hmm.
taking possession of your Bitcoin, and then
Right.
they are doing various activities in the background, lending that
Sure.
Bitcoin out to various people that want to borrow it, and they're paying you interest on that. So that's a centralized model where they are an intermediary.
Yep.
We can
Right.
offer actually better interest rates over time on Bitcoin without any intermediary. So we simply let you
Interesting.
send your Bitcoin in various decentralized protocol, Thorchain being a good first example of this. Your Bitcoin can end up in a Thorchain liquidity pool. The people trading on that Thorchain liquidity pool are paying transaction fees at the protocol level, and you as a liquidity provider of Bitcoin are earning a yield from the Bitcoin you've put in there. The major difference between BlockFi and Thorchain in this case is that in Thorchain's case, you're only trusting open source code. You're not trusting people. You're not trusting
Right.
opaque office practices like that you don't know
Yep.
what the asset's doing. And
Yep.
with BlockFi, you're trusting people. You're trusting a corporation. You can't see where the Bitcoin is, and you don't ever really know exactly what it's doing. And in Thorchain's case, it's permissionless, right? So there's if you care about like the borderless, decentralized nature of Bitcoin, Thorchain actually extends that into the lending markets, and a company like BlockFi never can. So ShapeShift,
Yeah.
you can see as just the interface in which someone that owns Bitcoin can interact easily with a Thorchain protocol or a Uniswap protocol, et cetera, and earn pretty reasonable yields through those things.
So how long before you feel like ShapeShift would be able to offer those kinds of protocol options within the program that you have now?
I think we will have liquidity pools on Thorchain supported in about 4 to 6 weeks. So
Oh,
pretty
okay.
soon.
So fairly soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's gonna, I can't, okay, so when you look at this, this really is a disrupting model to the existing models that were already in the disrupting space. It seems like you guys are disrupting the disruptors here. Because this
Yeah,
in
we're
itself,
we're trying to.
this,
Yeah, I mean
this would,
the Coinbases and the BlockFis of the world have built very successful, good businesses. I am a customer of both, right? Like I don't want to speak poorly of either of them. They are trustworthy, they are professional, they've done a great job,
yeah,
but they are still custodians, and ultimately they will act very similarly, if not identical, to how banks have to act.
exactly. Yeah,
The entire point of crypto is to provide an alternative to how the entire banking industry acts. And you
right.
cannot do that if you are a centralized custodian because you fall under
Exactly.
all of the same requirements and regulations that banks do,
Regulations. Yeah.
right? So,
And I think,
I yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I think that those centralized companies provide a good service in helping people kind of wade into the cryptocurrency world,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
it's a bridge. Like if the crypto world ends up just with a bunch of new custodians, then actually nothing changed.
Nothing
The
changed.
whole
Yeah.
the whole point here is to get rid of intermediaries because that's the only way that you get a borderless financial system that is open to everyone in the world.
Right, and I think the way that you guys are going about it with, it's kind of like when you look at the model in which the internet was built on, everything from TCP/IP all the way down to the web protocols, all of that was open, essentially open source projects that eventually became the backbone of pretty much everything we know now around digital. Okay, so when you look at that kind of scenario and where maybe the central bank and central banks will be going in the future to digital currency, especially around what China is doing with their own digital yuan. How do you see those things interfacing with what you guys are building in the future? Because I would agree that there is a massive disruption underway. Now, how close it is before we see true digital currencies at scale is still going to be very interesting to watch. But how would ShapeShift plug into something like that when we see central banks doing wallet-to-wallet type of transactions and no longer really needing to go through a bank system.
Yeah. So on this topic of central bank digital currencies, I think the first important point here is that fiat currencies today, dollars, euros, yen, these are all digital already, right? Like all the dollars in your bank account are already digital.
Sure.
There's not cash sitting in the bank vault shown to you as a balance. It is digital money already, right? So cryptocurrency is not interesting and new because it's digital. All the money that everyone uses other than cash today is already digital.
Right.
What central bank digital currencies are, it's not that they are digital that makes them unique, it's that they are more centrally controlled and more surveilled by a central bank than the current digital currency dollar or the current digital currency euro. To me, that is a much scarier proposition. The idea that any central party would have unilateral control over everyone's money scares the hell out of me. I don't know why anyone wouldn't be scared about that. That's very dystopian. It's the kind of thing that lends itself very easily to, if you have done something that the regime doesn't like, your account gets frozen or your money disappears.
Yeah, well, that happens in Iran, Turkey, China, pretty much every day. If you're dealing with China, in essence, I mean, they have their own social scoring system. If you don't, do the right things, you're not awarded the right kind of scenario, their digital currency is eventually going to convert to this. So essentially, you're saying that there's probably going to be, and I guess the question will be, as we see the transactions of digital truly start to move into governments, because they see what's happening in the world of crypto. This is not something that is by happenstance. This is a movement that I think we'll see digital moving across countries. I guess the question will be, is there going to be a parallel system like what is happening with Bitcoin and others that will continue to be able to give some alternatives to the population? And then who is going to win out at some point? Because convenience is going to be a factor, as you know, with central banking and just the whole aspect of it. But I think if people can figure out tech and what's happening over on the crypto side, it's going to make it easier with companies like what you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, ultimately, every human is going to have to make this choice over the coming years of whether they want to prefer a centralized digital currency that is under control of politicians and which is debased perpetually and loses value every year. Right? That's one choice. Or the alternative, which is an open source, decentralized digital currency like Bitcoin, which no politician controls, no company controls, no state or government controls, is neutral and borderless. And because it can't be debased, will tend to appreciate over time versus tending to depreciate over time.
Right.
Now, when I frame it like that, it sounds like an obvious choice, right? But you have to throw into the mix. You have to throw into the mix the general economic ignorance of the population and the propaganda of every politician and government in the world who will speak up their digital currency. And surely in some ways it will be more convenient because they will try to make it more convenient. But that's really the choice, right? Like, do you want a digital currency that politicians run that is debased, or a digital currency that nobody runs, which can't be debased? Over time, Bitcoin will outperform any debasable digital currency from a government. And so over time, just under economic law, I think Bitcoin absolutely obliterates any kind of fiat currency, digital or otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time for, and the cool thing is we're living in that time right now. The likelihood is the adoption curve is really going to start to accelerate in the next few years. We've seen a massive acceleration in the last 5. And I think we're at that point now where maybe society as a whole is going to start to, the technology is real. We have that use case scenario starting to happen. And then plus we have all of these, what are somewhat edge cases today of real use of cryptocurrency for transactions and other value trade-offs, as you can call them. that are going to just get better and better and better over time and make it available to where more and more people, I think, will finally come to the light and go in this direction. Do you think
Yeah.
that's something we'll see in the next decade, or what's your time horizon there? Where do you guys feel this is going to really roll out?
Yeah, the next decade is really the battleground.
Yeah.
This last decade of Bitcoin has been like the pregame,
Hmm.
and the next decade, I think this stuff shakes out. Maybe it's 20 years, right? Maybe it's 2 decades, but it's not 5. So it is in the relatively near future that this stuff plays out. Also, it's important to understand that like adoption of cryptocurrency isn't just about transactions, right? It's not just that maybe you can go buy your coffee with Bitcoin someday. All the other financial mechanisms that people use get replaced with alternatives that are decentralized as well. So a good example of this is like a loan, right? Debt and loans are a critical and important and valuable part of any financial economy. Today, you can go get a loan from a decentralized protocol. If you have, let's say, $100,000 of Ethereum, you can get a loan of $20,000 or $50,000 of a stable coin like USDC, right?
Right.
You can convert the USDC into fiat in your bank, and that can be the down payment on your house, right? So you start using these things for different things other than just pure like a merchant transaction, which people tend to think of.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is that is something that we'll probably see at least in the beginning of the adoption really taking off, because I think a lot of people, even though we're in it, neck deep in understanding and talking with guys like yourself and on our audience that's watching this, they're already quite a ways into either cryptocurrency, technology innovation. They understand where society is moving, but there's still a massive part of our society that is yet to even enter the game. So this is a very, very early stage in where, like you said, the battlegrounds are being really fought right now, and it's going to be interesting to see who some of the players are going to land out on the end. Eric, when you look at technology and where it's advanced to, especially in in what is happening in kind of both, whether it's CeFi, DeFi, fintech in general, are there any areas that you are really impressed with, either one, the development or the scale in which it's growing right now?
Yeah, the DeFi world, I mean, easily takes the cake. I was fairly ignorant about the DeFi phenomenon until a little over a year ago. It kind of started 2 or 3 years ago, using Ethereum smart contracts. And for your audience who doesn't understand what that term means, DeFi stands for decentralized finance, and it generally refers to the taking financial services that might be provided in the normal traditional banking sector, putting them in a way that a protocol, a open source software protocol, is providing that service instead of a centralized institution. That's kind of a simple way to phrase it. The DeFi ecosystem is sort of a subset of and the speed with which it is moving is absolutely intense. Like for those of us who are in the industry and spending all day trying to learn about this stuff, we can't even.
It's intense, as it is right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's because the barrier of innovation is so low. Any single person who is a sophisticated engineer, software engineer, and learns the Solidity code, programming language, can write incredibly powerful financial software, and can use other composable pieces that other people have written, so that like literally in a week, a profoundly new financial technology can be created, right? So some of this stuff takes longer than that, but the point being that like anyone in the world of any background, like a 16-year-old kid from India who has an internet connected computer and is very smart and has learned Solidity, can create a software protocol that obtains like literally billions of dollars in deposited assets overnight. I'm not exaggerating when I say that kind of thing is happening. And
I mean, if you look at just the growth of Ethereum, that's the story right there.
Yeah, Ethereum is sort of the base on which a lot of this stuff is growing. But it's so fast moving, and the
Yeah.
banks are so screwed. They they're so screwed.
So screwed.
They're just now starting to understand that Bitcoin might be around and Bitcoin is here to stay. And some of
Yeah.
them are just getting through their like final committee vote on, what they'll do with Bitcoin. That's something they should have figured out 7 years ago.
Hmm.
And they're just starting to learn a bit about Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
then Ethereum, they haven't even caught up on. And then the DeFi stuff built on top of Ethereum, and like yield farming, and like
Exactly.
these crypto-backed loans that happen with no counterparty or intermediary. It's going to wash over the financial system over these coming few years with a speed that is just awe-inspiring. And
Yeah.
I almost feel bad for the banking establishment, because they are going to be so caught off guard. But they have not innovated. They are in bed with governments, and they sit there with their special licenses, providing services that no one really like.
Yeah.
It is time for them to be disrupted, and that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had Nexo on the show. I was amazed at just the amount of transactions that they're doing now in crypto loans. Then you've got guys like Celsius. We've had a chance to talk with Steve up at Forger Digital and kind of what they're doing, not necessarily, even though they are moving into crypto loans as well. So a lot of these, these organizations have really kind of moved into kind of this as a vertical operation, essentially wanting to be the bank of the future, which
Yeah,
is
and
most likely
those are
going
the
to occur.
centralized providers, right?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and I think some of the banks see those guys as potential competition.
Oh, for sure.
But those are the centralized entities that are going to start eating the lunch of the banking establishment.
Mhm.
Immediately behind them is the decentralized replicas of
Exactly.
that service, which are going to
Yep.
eat all of the lunch.
Exactly.
And I don't want to frame it as like a mutually exclusive thing. It's not a fixed pie here. A huge amount of wealth is going to be generated because you're unlocking financial innovation for the entire world. So humanity will be better off, and we're building many systems will become better off as they serve customers in this way. But it's just like profound and inspiring to watch.
It's unbelievable. We're just like fortunate to be live at this time, because this essentially is replacing a system that is almost 200 years old when you think about it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun time, that's for sure. I can't wait to. I'm gonna become a customer of ShapeShift. We're gonna try it out, play with it, kind of get some good understanding. Maybe give some tutorials on how to help people that are moving in this direction with their cryptocurrency to do something a little bit more sophisticated in terms of becoming their own custody and control person.
Yeah.
When it comes to the cryptocurrency. Yeah, for sure. Great having you on the show, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you guys are doing some good stuff. I love the mission and definitely your approach to it, and pretty amazing stuff out here. We definitely want to get you back on as things start to roll out for you, especially with some of the new. I love the Fox token idea and kind of how that's going to be utilized in the future. That'll be fun, I think, for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back and chat about it in a couple of months. There will be some exciting developments by then.
Very cool. Erik Voorhees, thank you for stopping in, for CEO at ShapeShift. Great to have you.
Thanks.
All right, so all you guys are tuned in over on the podcast right now, make sure and leave us a rating and also subscribe. Additionally, if you are tucked in here on YouTube, this is the time right now after that interview with Erik, so you kind of understand what's happening. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. Make sure and hit the bell, because you can get notifications of stuff like that. If you have an idea for a show, shoot us an email the old-fashioned way to producer@reverendnetworks.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBath.